It's a Jover, no. It's a Jover, no. Why would anyone be talking to labor on Labor Day when they could be filming a podcast with Lex Fridman? I don't really know. But anyways, I'm gonna start a recording here. I thought this would be, worth a reaction. Jover, no. Why would anyone be talking to labor on Labor Day when they could? No one wants to hear that. What's up, static? Static, Shattuck. I did not see the new Tim Black video. I need to check those out more because apparently there's a lot of good content there. I'm going to grab a water quick and I'll be right back to get this started. Should be interesting for sure. Gotta take this off real quick. All right, I'll be right back to get this video started. If there's any issues with the audio level or anything, let me know so I can adjust it in OBS. But yeah, let me go grab some water quick. You're not expecting pushback. Yeah, well, that's the whole business model, right? Don't actually push back, just like agree with them in the end explicitly or implicitly. Okay, everything looks good. Let me take this out of here real quick. It's so hard to stream. I forgot, dude. I forgot how challenging it is to do a live stream. There's so many things to worry about. You can't do multiple takes. It's terrible, honestly. Yeah, I'm not expecting pushback that much. Lex typically... Well, I should start recording. So Lex Fridman is a podcaster who is very, Lex adores Elon Musk. And we know Elon Musk is posting, this to Twitter right now and pushing very far-right conspiracy theories. This is ridiculous beyond the point of ridiculous. It's not even serious enough to take seriously. It's kind of hilarious that anyone would consider this an actual, argument or point. Calling Kamala a communist is just absolutely wild, as we know. Making sure everything's set up here. 6 likes. Thank you for dropping likes on here. I'm gonna wait for everyone to fill back in. By everyone, I mean 6 people. Yeah, as long as he's consistent. So Lex Fridman loves Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is doing this on Twitter. We know that already. So the main question here is, will Lex Fridman be fair to Donald Trump and ask straightforward questions? Lex tends to be one of those centrists who leans right in the very end of things. He loves conversations. He says, I love it when we could have a good conversation about the future of America without yelling. But, in the end, he's going to support more right-leaning causes. He's very easy on Elon Musk. He adores Elon Musk. So I'm hoping he goes somewhat hard on Donald Trump. And by hard, just ask Donald Trump direct questions. No one does that. So hopefully Lex will do that here.
How do you win at that game?
They suffer from massive...
I don't know if you know this, but some people call you a fascist.
Yeah, they do. So I figure it's all right to call them a communist. Yeah, they call me a lot worse than I call them.
A lot of people listening to this, myself included, that doesn't think that Kamala is a communist.
I believe you have to fight fire with fire.
Politics is a dirty game.
It is a dirty game. It's certainly true.
How do you win at that game?
They suffer from massive Trump derangement syndrome.
I don't want to pause too much, but already the main point, Donald Trump saying, I have to call them a communist. They called me a fascist. For one, Republicans have been calling Democrats fascist, or not fascist, but communist. They've been saying Democrats are communist socialists for literally forever. The reason Trump is being called a fascist is because he loves authoritarian dictators and tried to literally coup the U.S. government and overturn any election. There's a reason we call Donald Trump a fascist, and he can do that, and then he'll use, he's already calling people names. He's already doing all that stuff, making fun of John McCain for being captured. I don't like the troops that are captured. I prefer the troops that weren't captured. He's been saying that stuff, and now he's playing cry bully, very manipulative, saying I only call her a communist because they call me a fascist. But he's essentially admitting here that he just says things. I hope Lex is able to hold him to that before we move into this. I hope Lex is able to answer questions for us by asking direct questions to Donald Trump that gets Trump to admit that he essentially just makes stuff up that he thinks will sound good for marketing purposes.
TDS, and I don't know if it's curable from their standpoint.
I think we'd probably have a better world if everybody in Congress took some mushrooms, perhaps.
First of all, medical marijuana has been amazing. It's been, I've had friends and I've had others and doctors telling me that it's been absolutely amazing.
The list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it?
The following is a conversation with Donald Trump on this, the Lex Fridman podcast.
They're getting smaller and smaller.
They're getting smaller.
Right?
I mean, people do respect you more when you have a big camera for some reason.
No, it's cool. And about 20 guys that you pay a fortune to, right?
All right. Okay. You said that you love winning, and you have won a lot in life, in real estate, in business, in TV, in politics. So let me start with a mindset, a psychology question. What drives you more, the love of winning or the hate of losing?
Maybe equally, maybe both. I don't like losing, and I do like winning. I've never thought of it as to which is more of a driving force.
You've been close with a lot of the greats in sport. You think about Tiger Woods, Muhammad Ali. You have people like Michael Jordan, who I think hate losing more than anybody. So what do you learn from those guys?
Well, they do have something different. The great champions have something very different, like the sports champions. And, you have champions in other fields, but you see it more readily in sports. You see it over a weekend or you see it during a game. And you see that certain people stand out and they keep standing out. But it's there for you. It doesn't take a lifetime to find out that somebody was a winner or a loser. And so the sports thing is very interesting, but I play golf with different people, and there's a different mindset among champions. There's really a very different mindset. There's a different thought process. Talent-wise, sometimes you can't tell the difference in talent, but at the end of a weekend, they seem to win. And it's very interesting. Like as an example, Tiger or Jack Nicklaus, he was a phenomenal winner. And he does have a different way about him. And Tiger has a different way about him. And Michael Jordan. And there's never one, you would think that there'd be one way. Arnold Palmer was the nicest guy you'd ever meet. And then you have some champions that aren't really nice. They're just focused on doing their job. So you have, there's not one type of person. But the one thing I would say that everybody seems to have in common is they're very.
Answer the question. He said there's a certain way about people and there's something to them 20 times. Just give a direct answer. This is so why is it taking so long to make an actual point about this? It's so easy to respond to this question.
They're driven beyond.
They don't seem to give.
Well, Donald Trump doesn't know the actual hard work it takes because he's not successful in anything but being a reality TV star. His businesses failed. He has a terrible record as a businessman. He was very good at playing a businessman and selling marketing deals.
Up easily.
They don't give up. But they do seem to be, they have a passion that's maybe more than people that don't do as well.
You've said that politics is a dirty game in the past.
It is a dirty game. It's certainly true.
So if it is a game, how do you win at that game?
Well, you win at that game by getting the word out and by using sense. You have to have a feeling where it's going. You also have to have a feeling of what's right. You can't necessarily just go what's popular. You have to do what's good for a country if you're talking about countries. But you have to get the word out, and you have to just continuously, like, for instance, you have a great show. You have a great podcast. It's very well watched. And I'm sitting here and I do this. A lot of people see it. And I do other things, and a lot of people see that. And I go traditional also. You have traditional television, which is getting a little bit older and maybe less significant. Could be less significant. I don't know, but it's changing a lot. The whole plane of platform is changing a lot. It's changed a lot in
the whole plane of platform is changing a lot. He just said changing a lot 10 times. Dude, I swear, he is just as bad, if not worse, than Biden when it comes to being able to speak in coherent sentences. This is wild. I forget what the question was. I don't know what he's talking about right now.
The last 2-3 years. But from a political standpoint, you have to find out what people are doing, what they're watching, and you have to get it. You have to get on. I just see that these platforms are starting to dominate. They're getting very big numbers. I did Spaces with Elon, and they got numbers like nobody's ever heard before. So, this is, you wouldn't do that on like radio. You wouldn't do those numbers, no matter how good a show. You wouldn't do those numbers on radio. You wouldn't do them on television.
You've been successful in business. You've been successful in politics. What do you think is the difference between gaining success between the two different disparate worlds?
Yeah, and they're different, very different. I have a lot of people that are in business that are successful, and they'd like to go over to politics. And then you realize they can't speak. They choke. It's hard to make a speech in front of that. Let's say you're talking about a big audience, but I get very big audiences. And, for many people, it's virtually impossible to get up and speak for an hour and a half and have nobody leave. It's not an easy thing to do. And it's an ability. But I have many people that are very, very successful in.
This sounds like a person who has zero ability to do any self-introspection, even like self-serving introspection, talking about like why they're successful, why they've done well, how they feel in this environment. He's using wording that is so broad and bland and simplistic, and it shows no understanding of even what he's involved in. He shows no understanding of even himself.
Business would love to do what I did, and yet they can't pull the trigger. And in many cases, I don't think it would work. Almost for everybody, it's not going to work. It's a very tough thing to do. It's a big transition. And now, if you talked about people in the business and politics going into business, likewise, that wouldn't generally work out so well either. It's different talents. It's different skills. I have somebody who wants to go into politics so bad, but he's got a little problem. He's got stage fright. Now, he's a total killer. But if he gets up into a stage in front of people, he doesn't do well, to put it mildly, actually. I mean,
Is that like Elon Musk? I feel like he's talking about Elon Musk right now, because that's a perfect description of like someone who has a lot of money, but cannot speak or look appealing on a stage or in front of people.
Stage in front of people, he doesn't do well, to put it mildly, actually. I mean, he does badly.
So you have to be able to make hard decisions like you do in business, but also be able to captivate an audience.
Look, if you're a politician, you have to be able to speak in front of large crowds. There are a lot of people can't do that. I've seen it. They can't even think about doing it. And they don't. There are many people in business right now. I could name them, but I don't want to embarrass anybody. They've been talking about running for president for 15 years. And they're very big in business, very well known, actually. But it takes guts to run. Like for president, I can tell you it takes guts to run. It's also a very dangerous profession, if you want to know the truth, but dangerous in a different sense too. But it takes a lot of courage to run for president. It's not easy, but you have, and the same people as I do, there are a lot of people that would like to run for president that are very, very successful in business, but they don't have the guts to do it. And
He just repeated that same exact sentence 5 times in a row. You can rewind it. He literally just repeated that sentence 5 times in a row, like word for word. Oh my. Do Americans know that he sounds like this? Do most Americans know that he sounds like this? I really don't know.
they have to give up a lot.
One of the great things about people from the business world is they're often great deal makers. And you're a great deal maker. And you've talked about the war in
Well,
Ukraine.
Kim Jong-un loves me.
and
Vladimir
that you
loves
would be
me.
able to find a deal
All the dictators love
that
me.
both Putin and Zelensky would accept. What do you think that deal looks like?
I think the deal, and I wouldn't talk about it too much because I think I can make a deal. If I win as president-elect, I'll have a deal made, guaranteed. That's a war that shouldn't have happened. It's terrible. Look, Biden is the worst president in the history of our country, and she's probably worse than him. That's something that should have never happened.
Okay, so the answer is 1, I have a secret plan, and 2, I'm going to go attack Biden and Harris. And the Trump campaign strategy is essentially they want to make everyone mad and scared, and they want to make everyone hate Kamala Harris because they know it will not work to make anyone like Donald Trump. That's why every ad you see from Donald Trump's going to be anti-Kamala, anti-Kamala. She's a communist. She's going to let immigrants invade your communities. He's not going to run on anything anymore. They're going to go complete violence with their messaging right now. Because right now he just that's not an answer. Of course not.
But it did happen. And now it's a much tougher deal to make than it would have been before it started. Millions of people. I think the number is going to be a lot higher when you see this all at some point iron out. I think the death numbers are going to be a lot higher than people think. When you take a look at the destruction and the buildings coming down all over the place in Ukraine, I think those numbers are going to be a lot higher. They lie about the numbers. They try and keep them low. They knocked down a building that's 2 blocks long. These are big buildings. And they say one person was mildly injured. No. A lot of people were killed. And there are people in those buildings, and they have no chance. Once they start coming down, there's no chance. So that's a war that absolutely has to get done. And then you have Israel, and then you have a lot of other places that are talking war. The world is a rough place right now. And a lot of it's because of the fact that America has no leadership. And I believe that she'll be probably worse than Biden. I watched the interview the other night. I mean, it was just a softball interview.
So you would like to see her do more interviews, challenged more?
I don't know. I can't believe the whole thing is happening. We had a man in there that should have never been in there. They kept him in a basement. They used COVID. They cheated, but they used COVID to cheat. They cheated without COVID too. But you had somebody in there, and now we have a woman that is not, I mean, she couldn't do an interview. This was a really soft interview. This is an interview where they're giving her multiple choice questions, multiple guess. I call it multiple guess. And I don't think she did well. I think
Donald Trump doesn't do interviews, and this is why we cannot give participation medals to candidates for just doing interviews. Right now, Lex Fridman is just asking very basic questions, and Trump cannot respond. But if you look at Trump's last interview on Fox News, you can Google it. The interviewer literally said, "Trump, you are an amazing man of God. You are a warrior of Christ, and you are so amazing. How are you going to defeat the radical communists?" Those are the kind of questions Donald Trump is answering during interviews. Do not give them participation medals because they just do interviews when they don't actually answer questions.
she did very poorly.
How do you think you'll do in the debate coming up? It's in a few days.
So I've done a lot of debating, only as a politician. I never debated. My first debate was the Rosie O'Donnell debate, right? The famous Rosie O'Donnell debate, the answer. But I've done well with debates. I mean, I became president. Then the second time I got millions more votes than I got the first time. So I was told if I got 63 million, which is what I got the first time, you would win. You can't not win. And I got millions of more votes than that and lost by a whisker. And look what happened to the world with all of the wars and all of the problems. And look what happened with inflation, because inflation's just eating up our country, eating it up. So it's too bad. But there are a lot of things that could happen. We have to get those wars settled. I'll tell you, you have to get Ukraine done. That could end up in a third world war. So could the Middle East.
So maybe let's talk about what it takes to negotiate with somebody like Putin or Zelensky. Do you think Putin would be willing to give up any of the regions they already captured?
I don't know. I can tell you that all of this would have never happened, and it would have been very easy because you don't have, like, that question wouldn't be asked. That's a tougher question. Once that starts happening, because he has taken over a lot of territory. Now, I guess they're insurgents now too, right? So, it's a little bit interesting.
It's impossible to have an actual conversation when Trump is talking like this. And if the political landscape is going to respond positively to this, there's no way to have a conversation. He's literally just saying, like, if I was president, everything would be perfect. Like, I would just do good things, obviously. You cannot tie one policy, or at least, like, Trump cannot tie one policy to the claims he's making on inflation, on the wars, on anything. And Afghanistan, which he attacks Biden and Harris for, that was his plan that Biden followed. And, like, how can we have any conversation? How can you even debate this logically? You really can't. He has endless supplies of lies, and he can make anything up. It's wild.
That's happening.
And I love policy. All right, I love policy debates. We can't do that anymore. I miss having policy debates, and that's why we got to get Trump out of the picture. Once Trump is gone, we can start having policy debates again and talking about how to move this country forward.
Right. So, it's a little bit interesting. That's happening, and that it can happen. And it's interesting that Putin has allowed that to happen. Look, that's one that should have never started. We have to get it stopped. Ukraine is being demolished. They're destroying a great culture that's largely destroyed.
What do you think works better in those kinds of negotiations? Leverage of, let's say, friendship, the carrot or the stick? Friendship, or sort of the threat of using the economic and military power?
So it depends on who the person is. Everyone's different. Negotiation's interesting because it depends on who the person is. And then you have to guess or know through certain knowledge which is, more important, the carrot or the stick. And with some people it's the stick, and with some people it's the carrot. I think that the stick probably is generally more successful in that, we're talking about war. But the kind of destruction that we're witnessing now, nobody's ever seen. I mean, it's a terrible thing. And we're witnessing it all over. We're witnessing it in all parts of the world. And a lot of things are going to get started. Look what's going on with China. Look at Japan. They're starting to rearm now. They're starting to rearm because China's getting, taking over certain islands. And there's a lot of danger in the war right now in the world. There's a great possibility of World War III. And we better get this thing done fast, because 5 months with people like her and him, he's checked out. He just goes to the beach and thinks he looks good in a bathing suit, which he doesn't.
What? Bro, what? What are we talking about, bro? What are we talking about, bro? Bro, come on, dude. Oh, man.
He sort of checked out. Hey, look, you can't blame him. That was a coup. They took it over. They took over the presidential...
I gotta hear this again, dude.
He sort of checked out. Hey, look, you can't blame him. Get this thing done fast, because 5 months with people like her and him, he's checked out. He just goes to the beach and thinks he looks good in a bathing suit, which he doesn't. He sort of checked out. Hey, look, you can't blame him. That was a coup. They took it over. They took over the presidential deal. The whole presidential thing was taken over in a coup. He had 14 million votes. She had no votes, not one. And nobody thought it was going to be her. Nobody wanted it to be her. She was a joke until 6 weeks ago, when they said we're going to have to, politically, they felt they had to pick her. And if they didn't pick her, they thought there'd be a problem. I don't know if that's right or not. I actually don't think it's right, but, they thought it was right. And now immediately the press comes to their aid.
If we can go back to China on negotiation, how do we avoid war with China in the 21st century?
Well,
Okay, he's going to say there's many bad things happening, and with our terrible U.S. leadership, it's actually a shame what's happening. And with this girl and this guy, this Kamala, very poor leadership, and there's things happening around the world, maybe possibly World War III, and we're actually running out of ammunition. The U.S. has no more ammunition.
well, there are ways now. Here's the problem. If I tell you how, and I'd love to do
If I tell you how, if I give you any plan at all, if I give you one policy, by the way, Trump cannot even give a healthcare policy. Trump can't even give a position on abortion. You know, he's been in politics for how long giving comments? For 30 plus years. He's been president and running for president for like 8, I don't even know, for 8 years now. For 8 years. He still doesn't have a solid position on abortion. And he's like, oh, I'm hiding the plans. You can't know the plan. It'll reveal too much.
do it. But if I give you a plan, like I have a very exacting plan how to stop Ukraine and
A
Russia.
very exacting plan.
And I have a certain idea, maybe not a plan, but
certain
an idea
idea.
for China.
A certain idea, maybe not a plan, but an idea for China.
Because we're in a lot of trouble. They'll be in a lot of trouble too, but we're in a lot of trouble. But I can't give you those plans because if I give you those plans, I'm not going to be able to use them. They'll be very unsuccessful. You know, part of it's surprise, right?
Right.
But they won't be able to help us much.
So you have a plan of what?
Bro, it's a insult to your intelligence. You either don't have full information, or it's an insult to your intelligence to be listening to this and be like, yeah, dude, strong. This is smart. I feel secure. He knows what he's doing. He's perfectly healthy.
What to say to Putin
Yeah, I know.
when you take
exactly.
office?
No, I had a very good relationship with him, and I had a good relationship with Zelensky too. But I had a very good relationship with Putin.
Tough topic, but important. You said lost by a whisker. I'm an independent. I have a lot of friends who are independent, many of whom like your policies, like the fact that you're a deal maker, like the fact that you can end wars, but they are troubled by what happened in the 2020 election and statements about widespread fraud and this kind of stuff, fake electoral scheme. What can you say to those independent voters to help them decide who to vote
Right. I think the fraud was on the other side. I think the election was a fraud, and many people felt it was that, and they wanted answers. And when you can't challenge an election, you have to be able to challenge it. Otherwise, it's going to get worse, not better. And there are lots of ways to solve this problem. Go to paper ballots, do it the easy way.
There is no problem. There is no problem that has been revealed at all. And this is why I'm against all of the dumb laws that are coming out surrounding making voting harder, and even for things like voter ID. There is not a reason to implement these laws. Even if you agree with the concept, there was no reason. It was born from conspiracy theories. I will not accept laws that are being made based off of literal lies. And Donald Trump talking about, again, we all know this, but Donald Trump lost the election. There were a million legal challenges, and he tried sending fake electors to be certified by Mike Pence. Mike Pence said no. They were illegal anyway, so they probably wouldn't be accepted. But Donald Trump did January 6th and had his supporters storm the Capitol to delay certification of the election because he tried cooing the U.S. government and causing insurrection. And him saying still that the Democrats are the real ones that stole the election is against our country. I would consider treason. It's really bad. And if you don't think it's bad, you don't have all the information.
I mean, the paper ballots, and you have voter ID, and you have same-day voting, and you have proof of citizenship, which is very important because we have people voting that are not citizens. They just came in.
Also, another thing that's just not true. We need to argue it because he's bringing it up, but this is something that is not true. There are not people being imported to America to vote right now. That's not a thing that's possible. You cannot walk into America and come in and get a social security card and vote. That is not true at all.
And they're loading up the payrolls. They're loading up everything. They're putting students in schools. They don't speak a word of English. And they're taking the seats of people that are citizens.
Also not true. We are not at a point where we are losing our citizens' school seats to children who cannot speak English. And that is just something that's not happening as well. But we need to be prepared in the next few months. As Donald Trump struggles, he will lean into more white supremacist talking points. He will talk about the suburbs and rural areas being overrun by immigrants. He will talk about these communities never looking the same and never sounding the same and never feeling the same culturally, because he wants to scare white people into thinking their country's being taken over. This is not something that's happening, and we need to be prepared to fight against the disinformation.
Sins of our country. So, look, we have the worst border in the history of the world.
One other thing, just as a note as well, individuals that live in cities, more urban areas, that deal with immigrants and immigration every single day, they have some of the highest approvals for Democrats. They support Democrats. They support policies that are more friendly towards immigrants. Those who are extremely afraid of immigrants and think immigrants are overrunning our country are those who have never interacted with someone who speaks a different language, who have never interacted with someone who is a different skin color, who they never interacted with someone who has a different sexuality. They only hear about these groups from Fox News and from media. So if you think about it, the ones interacting with immigrants are fine with it. They understand what's really happening. Those in the suburbs and rural areas, they're convinced to be scared because the white people are going to be taken over. And that's the entire point of the Trump campaign right now. And what he shared on Twitter the other day is actually an abomination.
We have coming into our country right now millions and millions of people at levels that nobody's ever seen. I don't believe any country's ever seen it. And they would use sticks and stones not to make it happen, not to let it happen. We don't do anything. And we have a person who was the border czar, who now said she wasn't really the border czar, but she was. She was the border czar, but she was in charge of the border.
Okay, when you talk about immigration, and Donald Trump put this on Truth, so actually, no, not Truth Social, my bad. He put it on twitter.com. When you're talking about immigration using this scope, you are trying to start racial conflict. You are trying to begin racial conflict in America. You are trying to start racial conflict and fear. You are not trying to actually solve a problem. If you have an issue with the border and with the immigration system, you would not talk about it in this way, because this is not true at all. This is meant to scare people. We need to fight against this rhetoric very, very strongly, because this is what causes countries to collapse and encounter problems. Not immigrants, but fear of the other. Xenophobia, racism, all that stuff. No serious attempt at solving immigration does this. If you seriously want to solve immigration, you don't call human beings aliens or illegal aliens. You still talk about human beings as if they are human beings, because they are. No person using this language is being serious at all about solving any issues.
And we have her, and she's saying very strongly, oh, I did such a good job. She was horrible, horrible. The harm she's done. But we have people coming in from other countries all over the world, not just South America, and they're coming in from prisons and jails. They're coming in from mental institutions and insane asylums. And they're street criminals. Right off the street, they take them. And they're being given to our country, drug dealers, human traffickers. We're destroying our country. This is a sin, what's been allowed to take place over the last 4 years. We're destroying our country. And we'll see how that all works out. But it's not even believable. And now you saw in Aurora, Colorado, a group of very tough young thugs from Venezuela taking over big areas, including buildings. They're taking over buildings. They have their big rifles, but they're taking over buildings. We're not going to let this happen. We're not going to let them destroy our country. And in those countries, crime is way down. They're taking them out of their prisons, which is good, because good for them. I do the same thing. By the way, if I ran one of those countries, any country in the world, I would make sure that America has every one of our prisoners. Every one of our criminals would be here. I can't believe they're going so slowly, but some aren't. But they all are doing it. And we can't let that happen. They're emptying out their prisons and their mental institutions into the United States of America. We can't let that happen.
So a lot of people believe that there was some shady stuff that went on with the election, whether it's media bias or big tech, but still the
before this topic, so the stories in Colorado, these are isolated incidents. There are local papers reporting and local citizens of that area of Colorado reporting that there is not an issue where there are gangs taking over every single apartment building or city blocks. What this kind of language does is make it harder for law enforcement to take care of crime. And we already know the stats where immigrants do not, undocumented or not, do not have a higher crime rate than those who are born in America. So when we talk about this topic, now instead of tackling crime, we're attacking an entire demographic of individuals. So now every single undocumented individual in Colorado is being under fire because of these comments. And it makes it harder for us to solve the actual issues at hand. Acting like the entire city of Colorado, or the entire, not city of Colorado. Oh goodness, I sound like Donald Trump and Joe Biden. The entire city of Aurora is being overrun is not true.
That happened.
So a lot of people believe that there was some shady stuff that went on with the election, whether it's media bias or big tech, but still the claim of widespread fraud is the thing that bothers people.
Well, his way, and we every one of our criminals would be here. I can't believe they're going so slowly, but some are.
Did Lex say a lot of people have issues with the election?
But they all are doing it. And we can't let that happen. They're emptying out their prisons and their mental institutions into the United States of America. We can't let that happen.
So a lot of people believe that there was some shady stuff that went on with the election, whether it's media bias or big tech, but still the claim of widespread fraud is the thing that bothers people.
Well, I don't focus on the past. I focus on the future. I mean, I talk about how bad the economy is, how bad inflation is, how bad things like, which is important. Afghanistan was, in my opinion, the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to our country.
The plan that Donald Trump made and the plan that Donald Trump set into motion. Donald Trump actually said that we'd be leaving by, I think, December of 2020, and Joe Biden set the date for September of 2021 because Trump never actually followed through with the plan that he set into motion, because Trump would rather put that on the Biden admin than take the blame for it.
And because of that, I think Putin went in. When he saw how stupid we were, Putin went in. But it was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. I really believe that. But you know, we left 13 dead soldiers.
The plan he made, by the way.
Think of it, 13 dead soldiers, many soldiers horrifically hurt with arms and legs and everything else gone. We left hostages behind. We left Americans behind. We
had over 60 Americans die in Afghanistan during Trump's presidency. He's not politicizing that because he's only using the current 13 that died during the pullout of Afghanistan for political reasons, because Trump doesn't really care. He's using it for political gain. If he really cared, he'd be talking about all the Americans that died under his administration as well. He wouldn't be saying that the Medal of Freedom is better than the Medal of Honor. He wouldn't be saying that John McCain is not really a hero because he was caught, because he prefers heroes that weren't caught. He prefers soldiers that weren't caught. Trump does things for political expedience. He does not care about literally any person.
Military equipment, the likes of which nobody's ever left behind before. Billions and billions of dollars of equipment. They're now selling the equipment. They're one of the largest arms dealers in the world.
Yeah, so like Trump is not only placing the blame for his own plan on Biden, he's also saying things like Biden and Harris are the reason these Americans died. Biden has blood on his hands. Meanwhile, it's a plan that Trump made. And they used this ceremony as a photo op and a campaign ad. It's one of the most despicable ways to do politics in general, how Donald Trump has done this. But he's setting records in that fashion every single day, and he has been for a long time now.
And very sad.
By the way, the question was about election disinformation and misinformation and claims of a stolen election. It was nothing about this.
Very sad. And you know, we were there for a long time. I was going to get out. We were getting ready to get out. Then we got interrupted by the election. But we would have been out with dignity and strength. We were having very little problem with the Taliban when I was there because they knew it was going to be tough. I dealt with Abdul. Abdul was the leader, and we got along fine. He understood. But, you know, they were killing a lot of our people before I came down. And when I got there, I spoke to him. I said, can't do it. Don't do it anymore. We went 18 months before this happened, this horrible day happened. We went 18 months and nobody was shot at or killed.
What do you think that was, the carrot or the stick in that case in Afghanistan?
The
that
stick,
worked?
definitely
So
the
the
stick.
threat of military force.
That was the stick, yeah. It doesn't have to be, but that was the stick.
Well, let me just linger on the election a little bit more. For this election, it might be a close one. What?
Not surprising, but the claim that there were 18 months without casualties in Afghanistan is a lie. That's a lie as well that he keeps repeating. But, you know, we allow him to say that, you know, I think Trump has repeated that children are going to school and getting their surgeries without parents knowing. And also babies are being executed after being born. So if Donald Trump can lie about that and get away with it, he can literally lie about anything.
Can we do to avoid the insanity and division of the previous election, whether you win or lose?
Well, I hope it's not a close one. I mean, you know, I don't know how people can vote for somebody that has destroyed our country. The inflation, the bad economy, but to me, in a way, the worst is what they've allowed to happen.
Say what
at
policy?
Our border, where they've allowed millions of people to come in here from places.
Oh my God, dude. Focusing on the border for literally everything. I meant, oh my gosh, for my religious friends out there. Name one policy that affected these things that Biden-Harris did. And you can't say oil, and we need to drill more oil because we're drilling record amounts of oil. We've signed so many leases to drill oil in America. We are leading the world in oil. We are leading the world. There is no more oil to be drilled. We are at our max capacity when it comes to refineries and crude oil. So what's your other option? Because the only policies Biden-Harris did helped inflation. But we want to answer these questions. We can't talk about it, though. We can't talk about how to move forward because Donald Trump wants to say all this fake stuff.
What they've allowed to happen at our border, where they've allowed millions of people to come in here from places that you don't want to know about. And I can't believe that that's going to be a close election. You know, we're
places
leading
that
in the
you don't want to
polls,
know about, dude.
and it looks close, but I think in the end, it's not going to be a close election.
What do you think is the right way to solve the immigration crisis? Is
Trump is not leading in all the polls. He's losing in most of them.
mass deportation one of the solutions you would think about?
Well, you've got to get the criminals out of here fast, right? You know, the people from mental institutions, you got to get them back into their mental institution. No country can afford this. You know, it's just too much money. You look at what's happening in New York and Chicago and LA and lots of places.
Immigration in general adds a surplus to an economy. Right now in Alabama, we have child labor happening from undocumented immigrants. That's why they're rolling back child labor laws in Alabama, by the way, because they want to allow undocumented immigrants to do labor, especially when their parents get deported by Donald Trump. They're going to be here working in our factories still. There's instances of children who are not American citizens dying in these factories as well. And immigrants in general do a lot of the jobs no one wants to do. So like food delivery, tending to hotels, waste disposal, farming, that kind of stuff. So kicking a bunch of immigrants out is not possible. Trump knows that, so he pivots to the criminal thing or whatever. But if someone is committing a crime, there's already a process for dealing with that in America. We are not just literally allowing criminals to live in America. And again, this is another conversation and way to talk that makes us unable to solve the actual issue at hand. And a mass deportation is not possible. We cannot afford to do that. We do not want the military tearing apart our communities. And many of these illegal aliens Donald Trump talks about, the illegal aliens Donald Trump talks about are actually your neighbors working jobs. You know, they're working jobs and they're your neighbors. And you probably don't even know that they're not technically citizens yet.
And you take a look at what's happening. There's no country can afford this. We can't afford it. And we've got to get the bad ones out immediately, and the rest have to be worked on. You know, it's happened before. Dwight Eisenhower was sort of a moderate president, moderate type person, but he hated when he saw people pouring into the country, and they were. Nothing like now. You know, I probably got elected in 2016 because of the border. And I told people what was happening, and they understood it. And I won the election. And I won the election, I think, because of the border. Our border is 25 times worse right now than it was in 2016.
By the way, he's talking about Operation Wetback by Eisenhower. Really, really bad. Really, really sad times. But we don't want to go back to 70 years ago.
I had it fixed too.
Oh yeah, and Donald Trump won the Republican primary the moment he called rapists, the moment he called Mexicans rapists and killers. The moment he started being like really loud and racist is the moment Donald Trump shot up in the primaries. There was no policy that he ran on. He added a populist message behind it to make it a little bit more reasonable. And ultimately, Donald Trump did lose the general election. We have to remember that too. But the Electoral College carried him through.
I had it the last week of the famous chart that I put up was exactly that. You know the chart? When I looked.
Yeah, very true. He only talks about the border because that's the only thing he can use to make people scared enough to vote for him. Good point. Very true.
To the right, I said, there's the chart. That was not a pleasant experience. But the chart that I put up said, and that was done by Border Patrol, that was the lowest number that we've ever had come into our country in recorded history. And we have to get it back to that again. We will.
Let me ask you about Project 2025. So you've publicly said that you don't have any direct connection to Project
nothing. I know nothing about it. And they know that too. Democrats know that.
Man, he really just lies, bro. I hope for the debate they have something like a video, because there are the private videos of Trump talking to the Project 2025 director. All of these people were in his cabinet or among his allies. The Project 2025 director talking privately, saying they're still connected to Trump. He's just disconnecting from them for political reasons. And Trump's entire policy platform is based on Project 2025. Even Ted Cruz is going on the news now and talking about how Republicans need to replace every single federal government official with loyalists. And they need to clean out the deep state and replace every single U.S. general with Trump loyalists as well. Trump was talking about taking over the military systematically, which is Project 2025, getting rid of the Department of Education. He's so tied to Project 2025. No one should ever talk to Donald Trump without calling that out.
And I purposely haven't read it because I want to say to you, I have no idea what it's all about. It's easier than saying I read it and, all of the things. No, I purposely haven't read it. And I've heard about it. I've heard about things that are in there that I don't like. And there's some things in there that everybody would like.
Say it. Say what you don't like. Say what you don't like. Say it. Tell me, what don't you like about it?
But there are things that I don't like at all. And I think it's unfortunate that they put it out, but it doesn't mean anything because it has nothing to do with me. Project 25 has absolutely nothing to do with me.
You posted recently about marijuana and that you're okay with it being legalized, but it has to be done safely. Can you explain your policy there?
Well, I just put out a paper. And first of all, medical marijuana has been amazing. It's been, I've had friends and I've had others and doctors telling me that it's been absolutely amazing, the medical marijuana. And we put out a statement that we can live with the marijuana. It's got to be a certain age, to buy it. It's got to be done in a very concerted, lawful way. And the way they're doing it in Florida, I think, is going to be actually good. It's going to be very good. But it's got to be done in a good way. It's got to be done in a clean way. You go into some of these places, like in New York, it smells all marijuana. You've got to have a system where there's control. And I think the way they've done it in Florida is very good.
Do you know anything about psychedelics? So I'm not a drug guy, but I recently did ayahuasca.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that speak to sort of the health benefits and the spiritual benefits of these different psychedelics.
Right.
I think we would probably have a better world if everybody in Congress took some mushrooms, perhaps. Now I know you stay away from all of that stuff.
Just remember when you look at a political campaign and you wonder Like, why aren't they focusing on policy? Why are they not appealing to good policy that can help the future of this country? Why are they focusing on vibes? This is why, okay? Lex is considered to be a very intelligent person on the internet. And he is very vibes based, of course. We know voters go based off of vibes. And he literally just said that some Joe Rogan wannabe type stuff. You want to be Joe Rogan, we get it.
I know also veterans use it for dealing with PTSD and all that kind of stuff. So it's great, and it's interesting that you're thinking about being more accepting of some of these drugs, which don't just have a recreational purpose, but a medical purpose, a treatment purpose.
Trump will not do anything to support this. There is nothing in Trump's history that would give any inclination that he would do anything at all with marijuana or with psychedelics or literally anything. He's had an entire presidency to do anything on this topic. And he just knows it's popular now, and he needs something because he's falling in the poll so fast.
So we put out a statement today. We're going to put out another one probably next week, be more specific, although I think it's pretty specific. And we'll see how that all goes. That's a referendum coming up in some states, but it's coming up, and we'll see how it does. I will say it's been very hard to beat it. You take a look at the numbers, it's been very hard to beat it. So I think it'll generally pass, but you want to do it in a safe way.
Speaking of marijuana, let me ask you about my good friend Joe Rogan. So you had a bit of tension with him. So when he said nice things about RFK Jr., I think you've said some not so nice things about Joe, and I think that was a bit unfair. And as a fan of Joe, I would love to see you do his podcast because he is legit the greatest conversationalist in the world. So what's
Lex just had Trump lie about the election and communism and immigration and whatever else. And the first point he sticks on is ayahuasca and psychedelics and also going on Joe Rogan's podcast.
What's the story behind the tension?
I don't think there was any tension. And I've always liked him, but I don't know him. I mean, I only see him when I walk into the arena with Dana and I shake his hand. I see him there, and I think he's good at what he does, but I don't know about doing his podcast. I mean, I guess I'd do it, but I haven't been asked, and I'm not asking them, I'm not asking anybody.
It sounds like a challenging negotiation situation.
No, it's not. It's not really a negotiation. And he's sort of a liberal guy, I guess, from what I understand. But he likes Kennedy. This was before I found this out before Kennedy came in with us. He's going to be great. Bobby's going to be great. But I like that he likes Kennedy. I do too. He's a different kind of a guy, but he's got some great things going.
Yeah, he is a different kind of a guy, dude.
And
for real.
I think he's going to be beyond politics. I think he could be quite influential in taking care of some situations that you probably would agree should be taken care of.
The Joe Rogan post is an example. I would love to get your psychology about behind the tweets and the posts on Truth. Are you sometimes being intentionally provocative, or are you just speaking your mind? And are there times where you regret some of the truths you've posted?
Yeah, I do. I mean, but not that often, honestly. I do a lot of reposting. The ones you get in trouble with are the reposts because you find down deep they're into some group that you're not supposed to be reposting. You don't even know if those groups are good, bad, or indifferent. But the reposts are the ones that really get you in trouble. When you do your own words, it's sort of easier. But the reposts go very quick.
Interesting. If you're constantly reposting from accounts that turn out to be white supremacists, weird. Why does that keep happening to me? I don't understand why this keeps happening to me. Why do everything why does everything I like have to be from white supremacists? I don't know. Being Donald Trump's hard, man.
Quickly. And if you're going to check every single little symbol, and I don't know, it's worked out pretty well for me. I tell you, it's truth is very powerful. Truth. And it's my platform, and it's been very powerful, very, very powerful. Goes everywhere. I call it my typewriter. That's actually my typewriter.
What are you doing usually when you're composing a truth? Like, are you chilling back on a couch?
Couches, beds.
Okay.
Toilets.
A lot of different things.
On the toilet,
like late at night and just
I'd
went-
like to do some later night. You know, I'm not a huge sleeper, but whenever I do them, you know, past like 3 o'clock,
Mhm.
they criticize you the next day. Trump was up.
He was
True thing.
posting. He was posting at like 12 a.m. or something the one night. It was like 2 a.m. He was posting memes about Kamala Harris sleeping her way to the top.
Okay, Trump was true thing at 3 o'clock in the morning. And there should be no problem with that. And then when you think about time zones, how do they know that you're like, you know, in a time zone, like an Eastern zone? So, but every time I do it after like 2 or 3 o'clock, it's like, why is he doing that?
He appointed Jeff Sessions as his first AG. Yeah. And Stephen Miller as a top White House advisor. And Stephen Miller is literally just saying like direct Nazi stuff on Twitter. And we've known Stephen Miller looks like a casting role, like an actor that you cast to play in a movie about racism. As the
But
racist,
it's gotten,
of course.
I mean, you know, the Truth has become a very successful platform. And I like doing it. And it goes everywhere. As soon as I do it, it goes everywhere.
The country seems more divided than ever.
Yeah.
What can you do to help alleviate some of that division?
Well, you can get rid of these two people. They're terrible. They're terrible. You don't want to have them running this country. They're not equipped to run it. Joe, it's a disaster. Okay. And Kamala, I think she'll end up being worse than him. We'll see. I think a lot's now, you know, the convention's over with, and I see I'm leading in just about all the polls now. They had their little honeymoon period, as they call it. And we'll see how that all goes. Who knows? So.
From my personal opinion, I think you are at your best when you're talking about a positive vision of the future versus criticizing the other side.
Yeah. I think you have to criticize, though. I think they're nasty. They came up with a story that I looked down and I called soldiers that died in World War I suckers and losers. Okay. Now, number one, who would say that?
He's basically
two,
said that publicly, bro. There's so many things Donald Trump said that you'd be like, who would say that? You've called John McCain. And by the way, if you call John McCain, who was considered a war hero because he was a prisoner of war, if you say, I prefer my war heroes not be captured, as a joke, and not even as a joke, as like an attack, saying, I don't respect this person, he was captured. If you say that about one person who served, just because of a minor disagreement, you think that about the entire group. It's like saying that Kamala slept her way to the top. If you say that about Kamala, if you say that she's too weak because she's a woman, you think that about every woman. You are not exclusively thinking this about just that one person.
Would say it to military people. Nobody. It was a made-up story. It was just a made-up story.
Yeah, that's true, Bark. Just Bark. He's given a lot of opportunities to just be positive. Softballs. He refuses.
And they like to repeat it over again. They know it was made up. I have 26 witnesses that nothing was said. They don't want to hear about that. Like she lied on McDonald's. She said that...
Oh, she lied on McDonald's. I just heard a quote from a former president. She lied on McDonald's, bro. She lied on McDonald's. There's no way he... She lied on McDonald's.
Like she lied on McDonald's. She said that that she worked at McDonald's. It's not a big lie, but it's a big lie. It's so, you know, I mean, they just went and they checked. And unless she can show something, they don't talk about, the presses are going to follow up with it, but I'll keep hammering it. But she never worked at McDonald's. It was just a, you know, sort of a cool thing to say, hey, I worked at McDonald's.
Yeah, because McDonald's corporate doesn't keep records of a teenager that worked at McDonald's, that worked at a McDonald's franchise 41 years ago. Out of all things to demand proof of that Donald Trump has not done, him talking about this is such a parody, dude.
But one of the worst was 2 days ago, I went to Arlington at the request of people that lost their children. There'll always be children to those people. You understand that. That's not politically incorrect a thing to say. The mother comes up, I lost my child. But, you know, the child is a soldier. And lost the child because of Biden and because of Kamala, just as though they had the gun in their hand, because it was so badly handled. It should have been...
Dude, Okay, so they followed Trump's plan that Trump set in motion, that Trump put in motion during his presidency, but didn't go through with. And now he's saying that Biden and Kamala are responsible for their deaths, as if they had guns in their hand, bro. And before Trump says he did not use this as a campaign advertisement, because we know there was that scuffle. Someone from Trump's team, like, I guess, shoved one of the workers at this memorial site because you're not allowed to bring your own photographers for campaign reasons. And Trump said, and Vance said this too, what, do you think we just went there to film a commercial or something? And then Trump's TikTok literally posted this, and Trump blamed the families and said they used it for political purposes at first. He also said that the White House purposely did this, but Trump's own team put this out from this solemn day. And also they said Biden and Harris skipped the event when it was a private event designed for political purposes. Biden and Harris were not invited. But this is what Trump's team put out.
We lost 13 great people. What a horrible day it was. We didn't lose one person in 18 months. And then they took over that disaster, the leaving of...
And going to a memorial site and being that negative, like, this isn't, it's not, it's really like, you're remembering someone that's a fallen soldier. You don't use, oh my God, I hate even having to talk about this. In the advertisement that he claimed he didn't make, he spoke about the tragedy for about 4 seconds and then went into attacking his political opponent, dude. Like, the cute voiceover with the light guitar strumming in the background.
Been done at Bagram, which is the big air base. It shouldn't have been done at a small little airport right in the middle of town where people stormed it. It was a true disaster. And they asked me if I'd come and celebrate with them. 3 years. They died 3 years ago. And I said, I'm going to try. I got to know them because I brought them here, actually. One night, they almost all came here. And they said, I wonder if Trump will actually come and see us. I heard they were here. I came, saw them, and we stayed for like 4 hours listening to music up on a deck right upstairs. Beautiful. And they were great people. So they called me over the last couple of weeks, and they said, we're going to have a reunion, our 3-year reunion. Would you be able to come? And it was very hard for me to do it logistically, but I said, I'll get it done. And I got there, and we had a beautiful time. I didn't run away. I didn't just walk in, shake hands, and walk out like people do. And I wasn't looking at my watch like Joe Biden does. And it was amazing. So
They keep bringing up the one time Joe Biden glanced at his watch like a few months ago. Oh, man.
did it for them. I didn't do it for me. I don't need the publicity. I mean, I get more publicity probably than anybody. You would know that better than me, but I think maybe more than anybody that's ever lived. I don't know, but I don't think anyone could have any more. Every time you turn on television, there's like 9 different stories, all on different topics, and they're all about Trump. As an example, you interview a lot of people, good people, successful people. Let's see how you do with this interview versus them, okay? I mean, I can tell you right now, you're going to get the highest numbers you've ever had by sometimes a factor of 10. But when a Gold Star family asks me to come in and spend time with them, and then they said, sir, we did a ceremony, and then we went down to the graves, which was quite a distance away. They said, sir, would you come to the grave? And then they said when we were there, it's very sad actually, because these people shouldn't have died. They shouldn't have died. They died because of Biden and because
He cannot give a few seconds to be genuine at all. He can't just be genuine and tell a story about a very short occurrence during this event. He needs to bring it back to hating people and hating Biden. And also, we know the Gold Star families there. They do not give permission, and they cannot give permission for every single grave there to be desecrated and to be disrespected. And when there's an official report filed because a member of your campaign physically shoved a worker at the memorial site. Not too good, man.
Because of Kamala. They died because it's just like if they pulled the trigger, okay? Now, I don't know if that's controversial to say, but I don't think it is. Afghanistan was the most incompetently run operation I think I've ever seen, military or otherwise. They're incompetent. But the families asked me if I'd go. I did go. Then the family said, could we have a picture at the tombstone of my son? And we did. Son or daughter. There was a daughter, too. And I took numerous pictures with the families. I don't know if anybody else was in the pictures, but they were mostly families, I guess. That was it. And then I left. I spent a lot of time with them. Then I left, and I get home that night, and I get a call that the Biden administration with Kamala is accusing me of using Arlington for publicity. I was in use, just the opposite. Just the opposite. And actually, did you see, it just came out.
That was the first memorial service Trump attended in like 4 years since he was president. I think since like December 2020.
The families actually put out a very strong statement.
Oh yeah, and he did not do this for any of the other anniversaries. Except the one in the election year, of course.
Defending me, they said, we asked him to be there.
Well, politicians and the media can play those games, and you're right. Your name gets a lot of views. You're probably legit the most famous person in the world. But
see what Lex does? Lex is sitting there asking these, like, you know, direct questions, or they're supposed to be direct. Then he gives that little bit at the end where you know what side he's on, and you know what side he's more sympathetic to. And he loves stroking the ego of whoever he's talking to. And just justifying everything Donald Trump's saying right now is very intellectually dishonest. Yeah, I don't know.
The previous thing, in the spirit of unity, you used to be a Democrat.
Yeah, true. Arlington was using him for publicity. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need publicity.
On the previous thing, in the spirit of unity, you used to be a Democrat.
Yeah.
Setting the politicians aside, what do you respect most about people who lean left, who are Democrats themselves or of that persuasion, progressives?
Okay. Is he going to bring up inflation, the border, or Afghanistan? Those are his three things. Or is he going to bring up kids getting surgeries in school? Or babies being executed? One of those 5 topics. Will he say one of those things? Let's see.
Liberals and so on.
Well, look, I respect the fact that everybody's in there. And, you know, to a certain extent, life is what you do while you're waiting to die. So you might as well do a good job. I think in terms of what's happening now, I think, you know, we have a chance to save the country. This country's going down.
A religious person would never say that.
What's happening now, I think, you know, we have a chance to save the country. This country's going down.
This country sucks.
And I called it with Venezuela. I called it with a lot of different countries. And this country is going down. If we don't win this election, the election coming up on November 5th is the most important election this country's ever had. Because if we don't win
Can
it,
you
I don't know
say
that
something good about the left, all right, buddy? He asked you to say something kind about Democrats or the left. Come on.
Be
or
another
liberals.
election. And it's going to be a communist country.
Be nice.
Or close.
Communist country. It's going to be a communist country. That was a great question and answer. That was a great answer to that question about why you, one thing you respect about the left. Good answer. You definitely, great.
A lot of people listening to this, myself included, that doesn't think that Kamala is a communist.
Well, she's a Marxist.
Her father's a Marxist.
That's right.
And she's
It's
advocating.
a little unusual, you know.
She's advocating for some policies that are towards the direction of democratic socialism, let's say. But there's a lot of people that kind of know the way government works, and they say, well, none of those policies are going to actually come to reality. It's just being used during the campaign to, you know, groceries are too expensive. We need them cheaper. So let's talk about.
Yeah. Trust busting is Marxist. Yeah, dude. Sure thing. Marxist. That's what Marxist means. Marxism means bad. If you like bad things that I don't like, if I disagree with you, you're a Marxist.
Price controls, and that's never going to come to reality.
It could come to reality. Look, I mean, she came out with price control. It's been tried like 121 different times at different places.
They didn't come out with price controls, dude. Oh, man. It would give states the ability, like attorney generals, the ability to try cases if there was any explicit proof of some type of price gouging. It wouldn't do anything they're saying it would do. They're just assuming what Kamala would want to do with the policy. It's not going to happen either way, but they're not doing price controls, dude.
Over the years, and it's never worked once. It leads to communism. It leads to socialism. It leads to having no food on the shelves, and it leads to tremendous inflation.
We're gonna see we're gonna see no food on the shelves once Donald Trump deports 15 million working undocumented immigrants.
Just
It's a bad idea.
whenever we use terms like communism for her, and I don't know if you know this, but some people call you a fascist.
Yeah, they do. So I figure it's all right to call them a communist. Yeah, they call.
I said this at the beginning, but of course, we call Trump a fascist because he uses far-right ultranationalist politics and populist rhetoric in order to grow chaos and division in the country because he wants to seize authoritarian control of said country. That's why he is a fascist. There are reasons we say this that map on directly to who Donald Trump is. He loves Viktor Orban, who is a fascist, and Vladimir Putin, who is a fascist. He loves authoritarian dictators who are fascists. He belongs to that political, not even ideology, but he belongs to that political rank. But when you call Kamala a communist, and he's been calling her that for forever, and Democrats have been called communists for 100 years. They're not saying that for actual concrete reasons. They're just saying that because they don't like Democrats. And Trump's whole line, his cry bully thing, where he's like, I'm only talking mean to them because they're talking mean to me. If they weren't talking mean to me, I wouldn't need to talk mean to them. Bro, we've seen you. Everyone's heard you. Stop.
Call me a lot worse than I call them.
They do indeed. It's just sometimes
It's interesting, though. They'll call me something that's terrible, and then I'll hit them back. And they'll say, isn't it terrible what Trump said? I said, well, wait a minute. They just called me.
That's what Trump does again. That's the whole point of the manipulation.
So I believe you have to fight fire with fire. I believe they're very evil people. These are evil people. We have an enemy from the outside, and we have an enemy from within. And in my opinion, the enemy from within are radical left lunatics. And I think you have to fight back.
No one has ever said anything that severe about Donald Trump. They've said that he is anti-democratic, he's a danger, a threat to democracy, and that he has fascist leanings and fascist authoritarian tendencies. No prominent Democrat has ever said anything remotely close to this. There's a danger within. There's an evil within. These broad terms, we're in danger. These are disgusting, evil, vile people. Lunatics. No one ever said that about Trump, dude.
Whenever there's a lot of fighting fire with fire, it's too easy to forget that there's a middle of America that is that's moderate and kind of sees the good in both sides and just likes one side more than the other in terms of policies. Like I said, there's a lot of people that like your policies, that like your skill in being able to negotiate and end wars, and they don't see the impending destruction of America.
We had no wars when I was president. That's a big thing. Not since 78 years has that happened.
Not true. There were no new wars, but Donald Trump escalated conflicts all over the place. Like, this is a technicality right now. He did assassinations. He destabilized the Middle East even more. He abandoned allies. He did many pro-war things. He did many war hawk things. Just because no new official wars were declared during Trump's presidency doesn't mean there weren't conflicts going on. I can't stand that line of attack. I can't stand any of this stuff. That's so far from logic. You can't even really argue with it, other than just saying it's not true.
But we had no wars when I was president. We defeated ISIS, but that was a war that was started that we weren't anywhere near defeating. But think of it, I had no wars. And Viktor Orban, the prime minister of Hungary, said the world has to have Trump back because everybody was afraid of Trump. Now, that's what he said. So I'm not using that term, but I think they respected me. But he said China was afraid, Russia was afraid, everybody was afraid. And I don't care what word they use. That's even a better word if you want to know the truth. But let's use the word respect. They had respect for me. They had respect for the country. I mean, I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, the Russian pipeline. Nobody else could have done that. I ended it. It was done. Then Biden comes in and he approved it. So we're defending Germany and these other countries for peanuts compared to what it's worth. And they're paying the person we're defending them against billions and billions of dollars for energy. I said, how does that work? And we had it out with them, and it worked out good. And they paid hundreds of billions of dollars. Or you wouldn't even have a NATO right now. You wouldn't have NATO if it wasn't for me.
As the leader of the United States.
Oh, he's one of the most anti-NATO presidents in U.S. history, bro. Man.
You wouldn't have NATO if it wasn't for me.
As the leader of the United States, you were the most powerful man in the world. As you mentioned, not only the most famous, but the most powerful. And
yeah, that's true that Lex lied about the price controls thing because he just said that in a different episode with Shank. But you have to realize he's here to make whoever's in front of him feel good. He will act cordial with everyone. And like I said before, he's one of those centrists that ultimately leans right, but he would never say that.
If you become leader again, you will have unprecedented power. Just on your own personal psychology, what does that power do to you? Is there any threat of it corrupting?
I can appreciate just having an interview with Trump trying to get into his brain, but Donald Trump's brain is impenetrable. You cannot get inside that thing.
On your own personal psychology, what does that power do to you? Is there any threat of it corrupting how you see the world?
No, I don't think so. Look, I've been there for 4 years. I could have done a big number on Hillary Clinton.
I only tried cooing the U.S. government.
I thought it looked terrible to...
And I said I wanted to jail journalists.
Take the president's wife and put her in prison. She's so lucky. I didn't do anything. She's so lucky. Hillary is a lucky woman because I had a lot of people pushing me too. They wanted to see something, but I could have done something very bad. I thought it looked so bad. Think of it. You have the President of the United States, and you also had Secretary of State, right? She was. But you're going to put the president's wife in prison? And yet when I got out, they have all these hoaxes. They're all hoaxes. But they have all these dishonest hoaxes, just like they did in the past with Russia. That was a hoax. The 51 different, agencies or agents, that was a hoax. The whole thing was a hoax. There was so many hoaxes and scams. But I didn't want to put her in jail. And I didn't. And I explained it to people. They say, lock her up. It doesn't. We won. I said, we don't want to put her in jail. We want to bring the country together. I want to bring the country together. You don't bring the country together by putting her in jail. But then when I got out, they went to work on me. It's amazing. And they suffer from massive Trump derangement syndrome, TDS. And I don't know if it's curable from their standpoint.
A lot of people are very interested in the footage of UFOs. The Pentagon has released a few videos, and there's been anecdotal reports from fighter pilots. So a lot of people want to know, will you help push the Pentagon to release more footage, which a lot of people claim is available?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll do that. I would do that. I'd love to do that.
But will you release who was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane? That probably has your name on it.
I have to do that. But they also are pushing me on Kennedy. And I did release a lot, but I had people come to me and beg me not to do it. But I'll be doing that very early on. But I would do that.
There's a moment where you had some hesitation about Epstein, releasing some of the documents on Epstein. Why the hesitation?
I don't think I'm not involved. I never went to his island, fortunately. But a lot of people did.
Why do you think so many smart, powerful people allowed him to get so close?
He was a good salesman. He was, was a hale and hearty type of guy. He had some nice assets that he'd throw around, like islands. But a lot of big people went to that island. But fortunately, I was not one of them.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that...
I wish Donald Trump did reactions to the Daily Show. Like, he should do a live reaction. He should be a YouTuber. Just have a webcam set up and do live reactions of like Kamala interviews. I want to see what he says, man.
Fortunately, I was not one of them.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that the list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Probably will be, by the way. Probably.
So if you're able to, you'll be.
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. Now, Kennedy's interesting because it's so many years ago. You know, they do that for danger too, because, you know, endangers certain people, et cetera, et cetera. So Kennedy is very different from the Epstein thing. But yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
That's great to hear. What gives you strength when you're getting attacked? You're one of the most attacked people in the world.
I think.
Well, he usually just cries if he gets attacked during an interview, or not attacked, but if an interviewer will ask him a follow-up question more than once, he just leaves the interview. He storms out of the interview because he's afraid of people. But yeah, what about your strength?
You can't care that much. I know people that care so much about everything, like what people are saying. You can't care too much because you end up choking.
One of the tragic things about life is that it ends. How often do you think about your death? Are you afraid of it?
And I have a friend who's very, very successful, and he's in his 80s, mid 80s, and he asked me that exact same question. I turned it around. I said, well, what about you? He said, I think about it every minute of every day. And then a week later, he called me to tell me something. And he starts off the conversation by going, tick, tock, tick, tock.
Yeah.
This is a dark person, you know, in a sense, but it is what it is. I mean, you know, if you're religious, you have, I think, a better feeling toward it. You know, you're supposed to go to heaven, ideally not hell, but you're supposed to go to heaven if you're good. I think our country's missing a lot of religion. I think it really was a much better place with religion. It was almost a guide, you know, to a certain extent it was a guide.
Simply unbothered.
You want to be good to people. Without religion, there are no guardrails.
Without religion, there's no real reason to be good to people. Ooh, interesting take right there. Very honest about one's own moral character, especially considering that Donald Trump is definitely not religious. If he believes religion's the only reason you'd be good to people, what does Trump truly believe? I wonder. Very unknown right there.
I'd love to see us get back to religion, more religion in this country.
Well, Mr. President, thank you for putting yourself out there, and thank you for talking today.
Look, I love the country. I want to see the country be great. And we have a real chance of doing it, but it's our last chance. And I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thanks for listening to this
terrible. That was wild. Lex AMA. Okay, so that was 45 minutes of almost, I don't know, half the concepts you can't follow, another half are conspiracy theories. And it's intended to scare everyone, make everyone mad at the world. Trump was given like 50 opportunities to be somewhat positive, but he refused it. He needed to be negative. Even when a simple question came up of what do you respect about the other side, he just went back to talking about how the world's going to fall apart. And also, if he's in office, he's going to fix everything with just like a light switch. Just flick the switch and it's off. You know, all the problems will stop if Trump gets in office. I can't tell you my plans. I can't tell you my healthcare plan, my abortion plan. I can't tell you any of my beliefs. Trump cannot say any of his beliefs, but trust him, it will be fixed. That's all you need to know. All right. That's enough for me. That was terrible. Thank you for hanging out, whoever's here. Drop a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you want to give me money, you can. You can give me money. We love money. I'm halfway to being monetized. We're on our way. But everyone have a good afternoon, a good rest of your day. Thanks, Andrew. Have a good one.